still has a risk of a claim like Erie had, that its ordinance violates the Uniform Firearms Act. The financial risk is not as great if Act 192 is declared unconstitutional. But there's still that risk that our ordinances would be declared unlawful. Does that make sense?
Act 192 speaks more to your fiduciary and financial responsibility than it does. Whereas the Uniform Firearms Act is constitutional.
And so, under any circumstances, if Act 192 were declared unconstitutional, then if we were interested in doing so, we would be faced in reintroducing each of these ordinances.
Yes, and you would still have a risk that a court could find that the ordinances are inconsistent with the preemption provisions of the Uniform Firearms Act. Now, I don't believe it's as open and shut as some people do, that regulating the discharge in a manner that's consistent with state law violates the Uniform Firearms Act. I think there's a question about that. I don't think it's as open and shut that the borough doesn't have the ability to regulate what it does in the parks. The City of Erie decision that's been discussed specifically leaves open that possible defense for our ordinances. But the law is unsettled about the scope of the preemption under the Uniform Firearms Act, and it is unsettled under whether Act 192 is unconstitutional. And from a financial perspective, the safest thing for the borough to do, regardless of whether it believes its ordinances are lawful or not, is to repeal it. That is the absolute, from a financial standpoint, that's the safest course.
And to rely on state law.
And to rely on state law. That from a law enforcement perspective, you've heard the chief say that he's got the resources, and the officers who protect the borough have the resources available to them under state law to charge people if they pose a significant threat.
I think it's important to understand those two concepts together. They are twins.
Mr. Pence.
I just wanted to ask, we've had a number of people speculating on exposed guns, waving guns, crazy people with guns. I'd like to ask the chief, how many gun battles have there been in the borough in the last year, 2 years?
None.
Thank you.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's a real simple issue here. That everybody on council, the mayor, has all sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution.